I want to start by saying something real. I've been gone for a while. What I am going to do is tell you the truth about where I've been and what I built while I was there. If you've been with me from the beginning, if you found me through the old show Simplifying Life, first, thank you. You stuck around. You showed up, and what I was doing over there mattered. Personal development, life strategies, ways to simplify the noise. That was real work. But something happened. Something changed everything. And when everything changes, you don't just update your content calendar. You stop. You look at what you actually have, and you rebuild from that. So this, right now, what you're listening to, this is the new chapter. The show is no longer called Simplifying Life. This show is called Rewrite the Story with Ron Simplified Myers. And before I tell you what that means, I need you to understand why it exists. Because this show didn't come from a business plan. It didn't come from a brand strategy session or a whiteboard in a conference room somewhere. It came from a night I was sitting in my car, driving strangers around for doing rideshare, when a man got into the back seat and quietly, almost like he didn't want me to hear it, told me he had thought about ending his life. And I had a choice to make. I'm going to tell you that story today. The whole thing. Because that night is one of the reasons this show exists. That night is one of the main reasons the book exists. And that night is the one reason I believe, with everything I have, that you need to hear what I'm about to say. Welcome to Rewrite the Story. I'm Ron Simplified Myers, and I am your uplifting life partner. Let's get into it. Let me give you a little context before I get to that night, because you need to know where I was standing when it happened. I lost my wife, Terry Myers, on July 26, 2014. We had 32 years together, 9 years dating, 23 years married. And for 17 of those years, she was fighting cancer. 17 years. I want you to sit with that number for a second, because it's not just a medical timeline. It's a life. It's two people showing up every single day inside something that was trying to take one of them. You learn things about yourself in that space that you cannot learn anywhere else. Some of those things you wish you didn't know. When Terry passed, I didn't fall apart the way people expected me to. I went quiet, and quiet. For men like us, men who have been taking care of someone, holding the structure together, being the one who stays calm, quiet is its own kind of collapse. You just don't see the walls coming down because there's no noise. I had survived a lot by then. Interracial prejudice. Terry and I faced real opposition in our relationship from a few people with heavy influence in her life. We survived that. We survived bankruptcy, homelessness, infertility, and 17 years of watching the woman I loved fight to stay in the world. And when she was gone, I didn't know who I was without the fight. 7 years later, I lost my mother, Betty Pitts, March 26, 2021. Terry was my partner. My mother was my foundation. She was my rock. She was literally the first editor of everything I ever wrote. The first person who told me my words had weight. When I lost her, something shifted again, different from Terry, but just as deep. Now here's what you need to understand about how men grieve, or more accurately, how men don't grieve. We keep moving. We stay busy. We tell ourselves we're handling it. And for a long time, that works. Until it doesn't. Until you're sitting somewhere at 11 o'clock at night and you realize you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what you want. You're not sure you're building toward anything. You're just surviving. That's where a lot of men live. And that's exactly where I was when I started driving for Lyft. It was a regular night, late. I'd been out for a few hours, picking up fares, doing the work, and a man got in. He was quiet at first. That's normal. A lot of people don't want to talk. I respect that. But something about this particular quiet felt different, heavy. We started talking, small things. And then, I'm not sure exactly how we got there, but we got there. He told me he'd lost his wife 6 years earlier. 6 years. And he was still carrying it like it happened last week. He had 2 boys. He said the only reason he was still here was for those boys. And he said it in a way that told me he had weighed the other option. Seriously, not casually. I turned off my app. I didn't drop him off. I didn't go silent. I turned off my app and I stayed in that conversation for as long as it needed to go. Because I have seen that valley. Not in the same way. But I know what it feels like when the grief has been sitting and it starts to look like a wall you can't get around. And here's what I told him, and what I want to tell you right now. You are not broken. Your story is, and stories can change. That conversation didn't fix him. That's not what happened. But something lifted in that car. Something shifted. He got out different than he got in. And I sat there after he closed the door, and I sat there. Because I realized something that night that I had been circling for years without landing on it. I hadn't just survived what happened to me. I had built something from it. A framework, a way of thinking, a process for taking the story you've been living, the one full of loss and confusion and not knowing who you are anymore, and actually rewriting it. And that became the book. That became this show. That man in the back seat of my car is the reason you're listening right now. Let me tell you exactly who this show is for. If you are a man between 40 and 65, if you have lost a spouse, a parent, a close friend, someone who anchored you, and you have found yourself somewhere on the other side of that loss wondering what comes next. If you've been told to stay strong so many times that you stopped asking for anything. If you're still showing up at work for your kids, for the people around you, but inside, you are searching. This show is for you. Not because I have all the answers, but because I walked this road and I know the terrain. I know where the detours are. I know what looks like progress and isn't. I know what actually moves the needle when you're trying to rebuild after the kind of loss that doesn't just take a person. It takes your identity along with it. Every Monday morning, I will be here, right here, with one piece of the framework that helped me rebuild. Direct, practical, no fluff, no motivational noise that sounds good in the moment and means nothing on Tuesday. Real things, applied things, things you can actually use. Now I want to give you the core idea, the thing that sits underneath everything this show is going to do. You don't suffer from what happened to you. You suffer from the meaning you attach to what happened to you. Read that again in your head. Let it sit, because this is the thing that changes everything once you actually get it. The event, the loss, the death, the moment your life split into before and after, that happened. I'm not minimizing that. That is real and it is devastating. And I will never stand here and tell you it isn't. But the story you built around that event, the meaning you gave it, the identity it handed you, the conclusions you drew about yourself and your future, that part is not fixed. That part is a story. And stories can be rewritten. That's not a metaphor. That is a literal description of how the human mind processes grief, loss, and identity. When you change the story you're telling about what happened, you change how you feel about it. And when you change how you feel about it, you change what you do about it. And when you change what you do about it, your life changes. This show is not therapy. I want to be clear about that. I am not a therapist. I don't sit across from you in a clinical setting, and I don't have credentials on a wall. What I have is 37 years of studying human behavior. I started in 1987, and I have never stopped. What I have is lived experience that would have broken most people. What I have is a framework that I built in the fire, tested in the real world, and then put into a book so that you don't have to figure it all out alone. I am your uplifting life partner. That's who I am. That's what I'm here to do. Walk beside you. Tell you what I see. Point you back towards yourself when you've lost your way. That's the vision for this show. Every Monday. One piece. Building towards something real. I need to tell you about the book. Not because I'm here to sell you something, but because the book and this show are the same thing. One is what you read alone. The other is what we do together. The book is called Rewrite the Story: How to Rebuild Your Life After Losing Someone You Love. I wrote it because I needed it to exist. When I was in the middle of my grief, after Terry, after my mother, I looked for something that spoke directly to me. A man who had been the caretaker. A man who had been strong for so long that he didn't know how to be anything else. A man who didn't want to sit in a circle and talk about his feelings, but desperately needed to understand what was happening inside him and what to do about it. I couldn't find that book, so I wrote it. Rewrite the Story is the framework I use to rebuild my own life, structured as a guide you can actually follow. It's not a memoir. It's not a motivational read. It is a practical, step-by-step process for taking the broken story, the one where you don't know who you are without the person you lost, and building a new one that is true, that has direction, and that belongs to you. It is the work I did, documented, made transferable, so you don't have to start from zero. The print version is $14.97. The ebook is $7.97. You can get it at books.by/simplified-uplifters-publishing, and it is in the description. If you're driving, don't reach for your phone. Get there when you're parked, but get there, because what's in that book is the foundation for everything this show is going to build on. You deserve to have this resource in your hands, not sitting on a website you visited once. In your hands. I want to close this episode by making you a promise. Not a vague one. Not the kind of thing you hear at the beginning of every podcast that disappears by episode 3. A real one. Every Monday morning at 5 o'clock Pacific, I will be here. A new episode. A new piece of the framework. Something you can carry into the week and actually use. This series is the book brought to life, week by week, chapter by chapter. If you're reading along, the episodes will meet you where you are in the material. If you haven't picked up the book yet, the show stands on its own. Either way, you will get what you need. But here's what I really want you to hear right now. You don't have to do this alone. That is the whole point of this show. That is the whole point of the book. That is the whole point of every conversation I have ever had about grief and loss and rebuilding. Men are taught to carry things in silence. We're taught that needing support means we're weak. We're taught that moving on is a matter of willpower and time. And then we sit in the silence of that teaching and wonder why we're not getting better. I am here to tell you, from experience, not theory, that the path through is not silence. It is honesty. It is community. It is choosing deliberately to stop living inside the story that loss handed you and start writing one that you actually chose. That's what Rewrite the Story is. That's what Simplified Uplifters TM is built around. And that's what I am committed to doing with you every Monday for as long as you need me here. So if you're sitting in your car right now, if you're at your desk at the end of the day and you don't really know why you typed in a grief podcast, if someone sent this to you and you're not sure it's for you, it's for you. And most important, remember, you are extraordinary. I'm Ron Simplified Myers. This is Rewrite the Story. I'll see you next Monday.